right, Wolf Air Records is here with Emily Zuzik. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good.
Awesome.
So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am now a Los Angeles based songwriter, but I've done over 10 years in New York City and I lived for brief stints outside of Austin and I grew up outside of Pittsburgh and I lived in San Francisco for 5 years. I've been writing and recording music for over 20 years, um, mostly in folk rock, songwriter, Americana. But every other project, it seems, I tend to put out electronic music too, usually working with producers or DJs. So that's been fun. And some stuff has been in film and TV, and some stuff has been pitched for commercial. And I sing for other people as a session singer as well. Um, I have a new album, came out in late August, and I have a new Christmas single called The Christmas Star.
Awesome.
That's the quick version.
The quick version. So you said you had some of your music in film?
Yes, I have. I sang on well, there's a couple things. There's a nouveau horror creep out director producer combo called Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson. They've done a few movies, and my friend Jimmy Laval from the band The Album Leaf has done most of the scoring for their works, and so one of my songs was licensed for their albums, for their movie Spring. And then Jimmy and I worked on the score, bits of the score together for their follow up movie, The Endless. And it was drawing upon the public domain version of House of the Rising Sun, which is very different than the one we know from the 60s. And so I sang on that, and that was used all through The Endless and for end credits. And then I've just had songs that were on albums get licensed for some films too.
Oh, wow. That is so cool.
Thanks. Yeah, it's. I feel like it's always good to have a lot of irons in the fire, but I knew that like 200 to 300 dates a year touring wasn't going to be my path. So I had to figure out what it was that I wanted to do to kind of supplement my own gigging and what smaller touring I did. And it seemed to me that uh, trying to write for TV and film, getting music licensed for sync, seemed more in keeping with, I guess, me as a songwriter. I mean, I have a lot of stuff. I write a lot with other people. We've written for, commercial briefs. So I've done the commercial music route too. So it's cool for someone who writes a lot to get into that game and hopefully find the right fit with the right company to pitch you, or make a lot of friends who work in post editing and hope that they can temp place your track and that the director just loves it. And then you can get synced into a film that way. So that's been how I've done it.
That is so cool. Is that something you've always wanted to do since you were little?
It's a good question. I always wanted to do music, but there were other things I've always wanted to do too. I always liked the idea of making or being part of making movies. I haven't really worked much as an actor in that capacity, but I've worked in production on some films and videos, and I have done acting for commercials, but long form isn't really where my passions are, but I liked the idea of it. I was always involved in like making small movies and doing theater and stuff like that when I was growing up. So it seemed natural that that would be something else I'd want to pursue. Um, but as far as like writing music for movies, I think it came later. I liked the idea of making music that seemed incredibly cinematic and bigger than a pop song. And I've done some records which definitely have tracks that are like that. So um, it's, I guess, because I was interested in films, either making them or being part of them, and then writing music which didn't necessarily fit into the traditional pop rock format and seemed like it went to picture better. Um, seems like a natural like area where things crossed and made sense for me.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
Now you said where are you at now?
I'm in Los Angeles.
So you're in LA.
Hmm.
So you
Where are
definitely
you again? You're in Texas, right?
I'm in Texas.
Yeah. Whereabouts?
Uh Down towards Galveston, Houston area.
Yep, yep. My sister used to live in League City.
She's about 5 minute, 10 minute for me.
Well, they're not there anymore. She's married to someone who's in the Coast Guard, so they move like every 2 to 4 years. But they lived down there for a while, so I'd been down there for a Thanksgiving and for a Christmas, and it was fun. We went to that jumping world like every time we were there. That's like a Zuzik family exercise thing. We always end up at like a trampoline park.
Did
And
you
it's not just the kids, it's the kids and the parents, which I am part of the parent wing, and my parents will come. They don't get on the trampoline though. They know better than to hurt themselves. They're in their 70s. So
did you go to Galveston?
I wasn't in Galveston, but I did go to Kemah.
Okay, you
Went
go
down there around Christmas time. We had a really lovely stroll around there. It reminded me of like a nicely dressed up Coney Island. So
another 20-minute drive for me.
yeah,
Everything
yeah, I know that area. So
I love it because everything's within like a 30-minute drive. I can go to Houston, or I can go to Galveston, I can go to Kemah.
yeah, yeah, there's a lot down there. And it's so expanding because I mean, like Houston's one of those cities that just keeps growing in every direction. We got up there a couple of times. I don't know which area. We went to the zoo walkthrough with the lights. I remember that went on for like forever. And I've been to a bunch of zoo light walkthroughs, like because my kid's young and but oh my God, I was like, this thing's never going to end. And it was freezing. And the kids were like, get us out of here. We want to go home. So,
Oh, okay, well, they're complaining about it being cold.
oh,
43,
well,
43 years I lived in Ohio, and you know how Ohio is.
oh yeah. Well, they're all back up north now. Like the family that lived in League City is now outside of DC. And my brother, who lived outside of Lexington or in Lexington for a long time, Kentucky, he is now up near Boston. So, and my folks are still out in Pennsylvania. So, like, everybody there is having white Christmas. And I'm just like, are we ever going to get rain in LA? So, the last time we had rain, I packed up my dog and my kid, and we drove up to the nearest mountain, which is like 35 minutes away, just to like experience snow for a half hour.
Wow.
It was fun.
But yeah, I definitely like the temperatures down here versus up north.
Yeah, they're easier to live through a full year of.
Yeah, because you go from like 95 with humidity in Ohio in the summer to like -30 and with the worst
Hmm.
of the winter, and it's like 120.
Lake effect snow.
Right, 120-degree difference, and my body's just like, what are you doing to me?
Yeah, I can relate. I can definitely relate.
So you looking out to put an album out?
Well, I just put an album out in late August, and I'm going to wait until 2021, but then I'm going to start writing again. I haven't really, like, we wrote this Christmas tune that we released, Ted and I, but I have lots of parts of songs. I'd like to try to finish some and kind of wrap my head around what's next. I have some ideas, but there's no rush. I mean, I still feel like when you put out an album in pandemic, you almost get like a spare year because no one's been able to play out here. So
Right.
it's all press and radio and Spotify, things like that. But as far as the live experience goes, like these songs really haven't had a chance to get out there.
Now, a lot of people have been telling me that this is like a blessing to them because usually they're so busy with doing, live performances in places that now they can actually focus on doing stuff for their albums, putting out more music.
Well, there's two things at play that I have found. One is that if you were releasing music this year, 2020, because everything was so locked down, especially on the bigger corporate level, you had a greater chance if you were hustling or working with someone to get more press attention to your more independent projects because there were fewer bigger budgeted projects sucking up all the air in the room. So that was the first thing I found. And the second thing was, I believe there is a fundamental shift happening in the way people are releasing and consuming music. And so I'm finding a lot more artists, myself included, being less inclined to making full albums. They take a long time to think through, to write, to organize, to sequence. If you're going to work with someone to put them out, they need like this long lead time to make videos, content. It's a much bigger project, and it takes a lot longer than I think a lot of people feel is paid back on the back end. And that a lot more people are shifting towards a singles mentality, because you're like, here's something new. 4 months later, here's something new. And it's a way to continually generate press, followers,
Right.
maybe sales. Who knows on the sales end, because that's a whole other bag of snakes.
Well, that and people are getting, the attention span nowadays is getting smaller.
Yes. Uh,
It's they listen to a few songs and they're like, okay, next album.
I
Versus,
agree.
like, like you said, people are going with the singles or the 4 or 5 song EP.
Mm-hmm.
They just think, well, okay, we'll do like,
That was my model for the last 10 years. This is the first album, like as an album that I put out in probably 10 years. I had another EP that was it was sort of, we were going into it like an album, but it was still only 8 tracks. So technically it's an EP. But everything else I've done in the last 10 years was either singles or side projects or co-writes with other people on their records. So I've been kind of playing in this world for a little bit now, and it does give you more leverage to like cross over and get more people to know who you are. And that's cool, especially if you do a lot of different things. I still haven't figured out whether it's a blessing or a curse to be diverse, and I'm not really worrying about it anymore. But a lot of people are like, oh, well, what's your thing? Like, if you don't have a thing and you're not consistent with your thing, then people like will, not necessarily pay attention. And I'm like, well, the artists I like the most had a tendency to transform throughout their career. People like Madonna, people like David Bowie, people like the Beatles, people like even Elvis, like went through several transformations.
right,
And so the fact that they were bringing something new to the table, like, of course, the people who were diehard into one thing maybe didn't like the next thing. Maybe they'd hang on to find out the next thing, or maybe they're just like, okay, that's done. That's what I like that they do. So, but you can't play to the audience in that way. You have to follow what it is that you feel you are bringing to them. This is your art. You don't compromise on that to try to.
helicopter.
What's that?
So was that in a helicopter?
Yeah, totally. Like, and my window is literally open that much, so that's how low and how close they fly over. So, yeah, that's the only one though. So it's pretty impressive.
Well, that's awesome. So you did you do a lot of touring?
At different points in time, I did pockets of it. I did pretty cool, like 3 or 4 times I went over to the UK, and in that, like, it branched up to Scotland on one and Ireland on one. And that was really fruitful. And I'd love to get back there, because those folks, they just eat my music up. I don't know what it is, but there's something about, maybe it's like the amount of British artists that I've been influenced by comes through. I don't know. Um, and then I was part of a women's musical touring collective called Sirens Wild Ride that was doing stuff in 2003 and 2004. And we did a bunch of regional stuff where there was a bunch of us from New York, and we'd pair up with 1 or 2 acts in whatever region we went to. Ohio was one of those regions at one point. And we would set up like mini fests. So we would get like artists to play. We would get like GLBTQ groups involved. We get like feminist groups on campus. And we try to play these like kind of mini events. So the people who were local could just, get their information out about their events or what they're doing or who they are. and they would shine a light on their communities to like the artists who were coming in town. It was a really cool idea. Um, so I saw a bunch of the Northeast, Midwest, Southeast through that. I did some touring through the Southwest with one of my old groups from San Francisco. And then, just as a songwriter, there's a lot of, the songwriter circles and house concert scene that, depending on where I lived at the time, try to tap into those worlds as well. Because I've done a lot as a solo artist with just my acoustic guitar. And sure, it's great to play with a live band and a full band, or to even have an accompanist to like fill in the solos, because I'm not a solo player. But I can do the rhythm guitar and sing, or the basic piano and sing. So I've been able to do a lot on my own.
Well, that's awesome. Now you said that you live in LA. Is it easier for you to find more people there to join you, or?
I knew a lot of people by the time I left New York, and I knew a lot of people when I left San Francisco. And I know a lot of people here now. I think it's just finding your community, and then you find the people who you like to play with and who seem to be the better fit with what you're doing. And then they introduce you to people. You usually work on other projects together. Then that person says, I got this other thing. Do you want to do that? It's a matter of how long you've been somewhere. And I find that if you're really trying to work a lot, usually after a few years, you kind of get in a rhythm and you meet more and more people. I've been lucky. Been connected with people who have like very proactive, networking skills, and that's led me to a lot of projects that I might not have found just on my own. So I don't know. I don't think it's difficult to find people in any one place, as long as you're, meeting more and more people.
Right.
Um, you figure out who you want to play with. You figure out who's a fit and who's not, and if it's, there's certain styles of playing, or networking, or work in the scene that jive with you better than others. And I've been at this a long time, so I also know what to avoid,
Right.
decrease my stress. I only have so much time in my day. And if I am correct about it, and make good choices for myself, both for my mental and spiritual well-being, as well as for, the kind of projects I want to be involved in, then I usually end up taking the right path. I've definitely stumbled along the way and made bad choices, and I'm like, oh, why did I do that? And then you're like, I'm never doing that again. But that's life.
Oh yeah, you definitely have that in your lifetime.
Mhm.
So where can people find your music at?
Well, the easiest place to start is at www.emilyzuzik.com. That's EMILYZUZIK. Because from there, there's links to the YouTube channel, the Facebook page, the Instagram page, the Twitter page, links to other projects I've been involved in. And, it's like a spider web. It goes out in all directions, And I always try to link to the people I work with, so like we can kind of, cross promote each other. But that's the best place. That's the best place to start. I mean, there's Spotify and Pandora and Amazon and iMusic, blah, but it's all like, let's put it this way. If you spell my name correctly, you're going to find me, because there aren't very many Zuziks making music out there. In fact, I don't know that there are any, because I've been like, had the kind of monopoly on the name as far as performing music for a long time.
All right. Well, thank you for joining.
Well, thank you for having me, Fran.
Oh, not a problem.
Awesome.
Um, can you stick around a minute?
Sure.
All right. But thanks for joining.
Thank you.
You've been stringing me along, and I've been playing my role, giving up to keep appearances up and run away when I fold. Everyone wears a mask sometimes. Mine's beginning to fall. Hey now, where have you been? I've been trying to keep this thing going. Stay, child, stay wild, all that you are. I'll be saying goodbye this time. I'll be saying stay wild, stay wild. I saw the warning signs, all that drama I found. Maybe I'm just too much to handle for you, you said, and then I stuck around. Gotta wish I told you you're right, instead of giving in to pride. Hey now, where have you been? I've been trying to keep this thing going. Say, child, stay wild, all that you are. I'll be saying goodbye this time. I'll be saying stay wild, stay wild. You got her tears in the end and gave me flowers to burn. I tried so hard to hear that you would be back, but I still had so much to learn. You had a box of faces